I don't know about you, but I was the right age at the right time when Excalibur came out in the theaters. But because of the violence and nudity, it was the forbidden fruit of movies for a young Jeremy. And according to my parents, I was just simply too young to see it, but I had caught glimpses of it on video in the early 80s that made me pursue it, sort of like the Grail itself. I had to have it. And once I saw it, I snuck it on videotape. I was blown away and was never the same again in good ways. In this video, we're going to take a look back at the 1981 film Excalibur and remember just why it is the classic that it is. Excalibur was directed by John Boorman and is considered by many to be a masterpiece of medieval fantasy. In fact, I would go so far as to say that it is the best medieval fantasy film of the 80s. And there are some amazing fantasy films that have this medieval setting that came out in that decade. The film draws its inspiration from Arthurian legends and chronicles the life of King Arthur, his formation of the Knights of the Round Table, and the film ultimately goes into the quest for the Holy Grail. The film begins with one of perhaps the most iconic scenes from Arthurian lore, and that is the sword and the stone. This is in the first act of the film, and Nigel Terry's performance as King Arthur is really delightful. And remember, when he's in the film, he's 35 years old, and he has to play this young squire all the way to an aging king. I really think the performance is excellent, powerful even. But speaking of powerful performances, the character of Merlin, portrayed by Nicole Williamson, steals the show. With his enigmatic presence, and he has mystical powers. Williamson's performance, it's simply top tier. It's unforgettable, and he does an amazing job of portraying Merlin as both wise and mischievous, which I think adds a great deal of complexity to the character and ultimately the story of the film itself. There was a trend in film at the time to take amazing British actors and place them in films as the wise mentor to the protagonist. Of course, you have Alec Guinness in the late 70s as Obi-Wan, but then you have Ralph Richardson as the wizard Ulrich in Dragon Slayer, and of course, Williamson in Excalibur. I have reviewed the excellent Dragon Slayer, and that video is linked in the description. And one of the things that makes Williamson's performance in Excalibur so wonderful to behold is that he acts opposite Helen Mirren, who plays Arthur's half-sister Morgana. Mirren is, she's a wonderful antagonist in the film, and her performance holds its own with Williamson. And I had even read, and I don't know how valid this is, but I had read the two did not get along, and the tension is evident on the screen. They didn't get along in real life, and this tension is evident in the film itself. While some critics at the time of the release of Excalibur did not like the film, it seemed when I perused all the critic reviews of the early 80s of Excalibur, they all appeared to appreciate, and in some cases they celebrated the visual aesthetic of the film. The cinematography is breathtaking. It captures the beauty of the Irish countryside where it was filmed, which it kind of infuses this type of mysticism surrounding Arthur's world. The scene in particular that I think of is when the Lady of the Lake presents Excalibur to Arthur, and I think it's just a prime example of just the beauty of the cinematography, but it has this gorgeous lighting, and it's just enchanting. Even the musical score, it's haunting. It creates this, no pun intended, a magical moment in the film. And this happens again and again and again. This is movie making at its finest. Of course, you can't forget the Knights of the Round Table, which for a young person, I was really captivated, not just of Arthur and specifically Lancelot, but the Knights of the Round Table and the concept of the Round Table itself. The film does a good job showcasing the camaraderie and the loyalty between Arthur and his knights. And there's an ensemble cast in the film, not just of the Knights of the Round Table, but other actors as well. The Knights of the Round Table, you have a young Liam Neeson, Patrick Stewart, but also Gabriel Byrne plays Arthur's father at the beginning of the film. His father's name is Uther. The chemistry of the Knights of the Round Table and even the rivalry between these actors, it just brings them to life and makes their interactions and in some cases their battles all the more engaging. When it comes to the action in Excalibur, it's, in my opinion, isn't just as engaging as the performances, the actual dialogue, acting performances themselves. The battle sequences, they're intense, they're gritty, and it might just be some of the best armored clad medieval combat ever on the screen. The clash of swords, the clanging of armor, and the epic just choreography make these scenes truly memorable. Everything from Arthur and Lancelot fighting along it's like a river, stream. That scene all the way to the climactic battle at the end, it's evident that the filmmakers, it just spared no expense in creating realistic and visceral combat in this fantasy setting. As the film progresses, Arthur's quest for the Holy Grail takes center stage, and this part of the story is where the film, at least to me, it delves into deeper themes of like faith and redemption and ultimately sacrifice. And the imagery and symbolism used throughout this segment, for me, it was thought-provoking, and it added another layer of complexity to the narrative. Of course, when I was a kid, it was just a visceral experience, but as I got older, I started to really pick up on these themes. And then finally, when we reach the climactic battle of the film where Arthur must confront his greatest adversary, Mordred, the intensity and emotional weight of the scene is palpable. And it left on a young person, it left this lasting impact on me, and I think the audience too. The outcome of the battle is bittersweet, and I don't know, it seems to emphasize this cyclical nature of power and the fleeting nature of glory. You can maybe get glory for just an instant and then it's gone. And I love that is a theme of the film. If you haven't seen Excalibur in a while, or if you've never seen it, do yourself a favor, take a moment and watch it. This film is a timeless classic. It transports us to a world of chivalry, magic, and adventure. Its mesmerizing visuals, captivating performances, and epic storytelling make it a must-watch for fans of medieval fantasy or just fans of movies. Thanks for watching, and as always, thanks for living in the past with me.